Hi fellas. So, this is a video I didn't expect to be making. Never would I have expected to be making this video. Is what it is. So, yeah, I want to talk today about the Pinkertons now, and how they relate to Wizards of the Coast. But first things first, for those of you not familiar with me, I typically go by the screen name of Escef. I'm a big dork. I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons, BattleTech, fantasy fiction, and big stompy robots pretty much most of my life, since I was like 11. So, well over 30 years now. So, and as you can see, I just set up a green screen here. Oh, you thump at someone else, you pet rabbit off to the side. Jeez, not. This is a little bit of a new setup here. But, yeah, I set up a green screen. As you can see, it's not fully worked out. Needs better lighting on it so that it, like, captures more properly. I know things look a little bit like a mess, but that's okay. It's okay. Oh, the Pinkertons and Wizards of the Coast. Now, Wizards of the Coast basically is the 800-pound gorilla in the hobby gaming world. They own Dungeons and Dragons. They have for well over 20 years now, because they bought out TSR when TSR was getting ready to, like, basically be bought out in a hostile takeover because TSR was going broke. That's not cool. That's not a cool thing to be. Plus, of course, it's like Magic the Gathering. They used to be the U.S. publisher of the Pokemon card game. They're not anymore. Haven't been for a long time now. Whatever. They bought out Avalon Hill. They own a crap ton of board games. Because of that. And they were also purchased many years back as well by Hasbro. So they're owned by the same people that own, like, Transformers and Mr. Potato Head. I should really be using this hand to count on. I'm not used to this camera either. It's okay. But, yeah, Hasbro owns Transformers, Mr. Potato Head, Monopoly, Parker Brothers. Not sure if they own Milton Bradley. I'd have to look that up. I mean, they own a lot. Or is it Milton Bradley they own it, not Parker Brothers? Or is it both? I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head, and I would have to look it up. Now, what I'm going to be talking about is all stuff that's publicly available information. So, what happened a few weeks ago? Some guy, that's a YouTube channel, orders some stuff from a distributor or whatever, and he gets sent the wrong stuff. Now, he ordered some Magic the Gathering cards, and he got the wrong stuff. He got the wrong stuff. Now, most people in a similar situation would say, hey, you sent me the wrong stuff. I'll send it back. You pay for the shipping, send me the right stuff. And provided it was like a one-time occurrence, would care. Nobody would care. Here's where things get different. What they sent him was stuff that wasn't supposed to be released for 2 months. For like 2 months? Almost 3? Like, they hadn't even started teasing this on stuff online yet. Wizards had not even started teasing this stuff. It was a Magic the Gathering product. And so what the guy did is he basically just started opening it up and putting on, like, pictures and images on YouTube. Now, for Wizards of the Coast, this is really screwed up. Now, this runs afoul of all sorts of stuff when it comes to intellectual property rights, um, and all sorts of stuff. So basically, from a legal standpoint, this man is in possession of something that he's not supposed to have. Period. Statement ends. Worst case scenario, this would be listed as theft. Best case, it's a simple accident, just return the stuff. All well and good. Now, the gentleman claims that a couple of private detectives hired by Wizards of the Coast came to his home and retrieved the stuff. They were let in. They took what they came for and nothing else, and they left. So far, nothing too crazy here, right? Now, here's where things get weird, is people throwing a shit fit because of what the name of the agency was. The Pinkertons. Oh, yeah. So apparently, I know, I've never played any of the Red Dead Redemption games, but apparently the Pinkertons are... Yes, I chopped off the side right there, so... Oh my god! Ah, my head! So apparently the Pinkertons were, some of the bad guys in Red Dead 2. I don't know about this. I didn't play the game. I don't really know the game. I remember when the first one came out, there was a bunch of people talking about it being Grand Theft Horse. Reference to Rockstar's somewhat more famous series of games, Grand Theft Auto. So, yeah, okay, so they were the bad guys in Grand Theft Horse 2. Or some of the bad guys, I don't know. I haven't looked into it too strong, because it's not super relevant, other than the fact that this is apparently where most people know the Pinkertons from. And now, you see me keep looking up, that's because I'm looking at the screen as I'm talking, and the camera's like slightly below that, so it's, whatever. So anyway, question becomes, why is this a big deal, and who are the Pinkertons? Well, the Pinkertons were founded in the early 1850s by an Irish immigrant, if I recall his name correctly, it was Alan Pinkerton? Began with an A. I looked this stuff up the other day. I'm not working off of any notes. This is all just off the top of my head from stuff I've recently read. Some of the stuff I already knew. A lot of it I didn't. But Mr. Pinkerton himself was an abolitionist. He didn't like slavery. He was against it. He was dead set against it. One might even say he was red dead set against it. Yeah, yes, I made that joke. It wasn't funny, but I made it. Anyway. So people, will say, oh my god, the Pinkertons used to chase down fugitive slaves, and they were slave catchers, and this, that, and blah, 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 blah. And no, they weren't. I mean, I don't know if that's what Red Dead told you. I really don't. As far as familiarity with the Pinkertons through video games, I mean, it's not exactly a good way to get your information. Coincidentally, the character of Booker DeWitt from Bioshock Infinite, at one point in his past, was a Pinkerton. So anyway, so the Pinkertons were a private detective agency, security enforcement. They did not hunt down runaway slaves. That was not something they did. In fact, the founder of the company, Mr. Pinkerton himself, not only was an abolitionist, but he raised money to help fund the activities of a gentleman by the name of John Brown, and helped to smuggle some freed slaves to Canada. his house was a stop on the Underground Railroad. Does that sound like someone that's going to be involved in the slave catching business to you? Because it sure as hell doesn't sound like it to me. Call me crazy on that if you like. Now, if you don't know who John Brown was, oh goodness, I suggest you do a little research on who John Brown was, because this John Brown was a character, let me tell you. Short story. John Brown was violently abolitionist. He was violently against slavery. He literally partook in violence to free slaves and to help and bring about the end of slavery. To such an extent that by modern classification terms, he would have been called a terrorist. Terrorism being, of course, the use of violence by a non-state actor in an effort to bring about social or political change. Some people also put monetary benefit in there as other possible motivator for terrorism. I mean, I'm kind of iffy on that. I mean, at that point, it's just like, are they a terrorist or are they just simple, like, organized crime? You know, I mean, I think there's a line that divides organized crime from terrorism. One of those is the whole ideological, motivation. Call me crazy on that if you like. So, yeah, John Brown was just that dead set against it. Like, other abolitionists, black abolitionists, looked at John Brown and said, I like you, I understand where you're coming from, but you're crazy. You're going to get people killed. And, of course, he did. And, you know what? Abolition ended up getting a lot of people killed. Had this war all about it. Now, if anyone's going to sit there and say, oh my god, it was about states' rights, yeah, sure it was, buddy. Yeah, about states' rights to what? No. But anyways, that's irrelevant to what we're trying to talk about. I have a nasty tendency to get sidetracked and whatnot. So I'm trying to. We're already looking at 12 minutes here, almost 13. So I'm going to try to keep this on topic if I can, without making a huge history lesson. So, Mr. Pinkerton himself was not a slave catcher. Didn't involve his business in slave catching. He died in, I want to say it was the early 1880s, at which point in time, slavery in the United States was no longer a thing. So, I mean, the whole argument that, oh my god, he was a slave catcher. No. That the Pinkerton Agency was involved in the slave catching. No. There was a weird situation where they were contracted to do anti-terrorism, anti-insurgency work down in Cuba. And this was while Mr. Pinkerton himself was still alive. Mr. Pinkerton claims he did not know that one of the key parts of this uprising was a revolt against slavery. He claimed not to know that. Given his background, I'm inclined to believe him, because man's operating out of the United States. He contracts people to do work down in Cuba. He sends them out. It's very possible he did not know. I mean, considering the rest of his background, would it make sense for him to knowingly do that? And I have to say, no, it wouldn't. It totally wouldn't. So there's that. Now, after Mr. Pinkerton's death, well, things get real out. So from the very beginning, the Pinkerton Agency was involved in things like security, private investigations, espionage. In fact, the Pinkertons foiled an assassination attempt on President-elect Abraham Lincoln in, I believe it was 1861, and they were spies for the Union Army during the Civil War. Um, some there's some disagreement over the quality of the intel that they were feeding to the Union Army. Some say that the Pinkertons um, gave bad figures to the Union Army. Others say that it was General McClellan who exaggerated the figures that he got from the Pinkertons, and that the numbers that the Pinkertons fed him were a little bit more realistic. So there's that. I mean, take from that what you will. I don't know. It's kind of impossible to know at this point for certain without looking, at least without having access to like original documents. And I don't have that. Regardless, after the war and after and especially after Mr. Pinkerton's death, the Pinkerton Agency was hired to do union busting. And this is where most people are familiar with the Pinkertons from. Pinkertons would basically hire drifters and ne'er-do-wells as security forces and arm them and basically have them go out and crack heads. There's no two ways to put this. The Pinkertons were on the bad guy side here. The Pinkertons were involved in a lot of bad shit. I mean, a lot of bad shit. To such an extent that a federal law was passed saying that if you're a member of the Pinkertons, or specifically the Pinkertons, or any other private agency, then you cannot be a federal employee. Now, that's pretty fucked up. But that's just how bad the Pinkertons and similar agencies' reputations had gotten. In fact, by the time that, by the I want to say 1920s, 1930s, it was estimated that there were several thousand agents, not just from the Pinkertons, but from other investigation and security companies that were infiltrating unions. Partially for the sake of trying to prevent union formation or to weaken the unions. Sometimes once again, they were involved in straight up violent union busting, where they would literally crack heads while doing crowd control. Or, heavens forbid, yes, there are several well-documented instances where Pinkerton agents killed people. A lot of people. And things would get out of hand, and then the National Guard would be called in, and then more people died. It was bad. I would honestly, if you want more information on that, I would highly recommend doing some research on the history of organized labor in the United States, because there's a lot of crazy shit there. Pardon my French. So, okay, so that's what the Pinkertons were doing. After a while, the Pinkertons more or less got out of that business. They're not in the skull-cracking business these days. The Pinkertons are a private security firm, and they do private investigations. They do digital security. Theoretically, they're not involved in any actions that are going to involve violence out of necessity. Like, I've done security work. 99% of the time, there's no violence involved in security work. In fact, during the entire time I done security work, I have not had to raise a hand to anyone. and people haven't really raised hand to me. One of the nice things about security work is people will see you in a uniform and they'll just automatically kind of defer to you a bit because they know that you have authority behind you. And so they know screwing with you means screwing with other people. Interestingly enough, way back in the day, I'm talking like 23, 24 years ago, something like that. I was working at an all-night gas station, and I was there for like 3 months, 2.5, 3 months when I got held up at shotgun point. Yeah, that wasn't fun. Another time while working at that place, I got physically assaulted. So, yeah, security work was actually safer than that. So go fig, right? So anyways, so yeah, I've done security work, and I understand what goes into it. And as a general rule, you're not cracking people's skulls. Now, are private investigators frequently involved in shady shit? Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, they computer hacking, covert surveillance, shit like that. Because I mean, you're either spying on people who are trying to, you're basically spying on people who you suspect of committing industrial espionage, and that's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of money at stake with stuff like that. So yeah, they're going to do shady stuff. They get paid enough to sit there and say, okay, yeah, I'll do shady stuff for you for that much money. Yeah. I mean, it's not like they're killing anybody. It's not like they're cracking anybody's heads. They're just, violating people's privacy. But at the same time, these are people that you're pretty sure have already violated others' privacy. When it comes to things like intellectual property and trade secrets, stuff like that. So, are the Pinkertons of today still shady people? Yes, absolutely. They still are involved in shady shit. Coincidentally, the Pinkerton agency, I want to say was, oh god, it's a bunch of years ago. I don't remember precisely when it was, but they were bought out by a European company, European-based company. I can't remember precisely where they were based. I want to say Sweden, but I'm not 100% certain. A company called Securitas, which is one of the biggest security companies in the world, owns the Pinkertons these days. Now, granted, because of the history with the Pinkertons, there are a lot of people in coal country, in mining, who grew up in coal country, in mining communities, around steel plants, foundries, and even auto manufacturing. In towns that were like that, they have a lot of bad stories about the Pinkertons. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that they're inaccurate. Some might be, I'm pretty sure most of them are exaggerated. But there's a healthy dose of reality there, too. And like I said, the Pinkertons were involved in some really bad stuff. And they have not been involved in that business in a long, long time. And if you're wondering, no, I have never personally worked for the Pinkertons. I've never met anyone that, to my knowledge, worked for the Pinkertons. I'm just trying to look at the whole thing realistically. So Wizards of the Coast. This guy gets a hold of stuff that wasn't supposed to be sent to him. It was sent to him in error, and Wizards sent Pinkerton agents out to retrieve the stuff. Now, all the reporting states that the Pinkerton agents came up to his door, and mind you, all we really have is this guy's side of the story as far as I know. Wizards hasn't said anything. The Pinkertons haven't said anything. Mind you, one of the reasons why the Pinkertons haven't said anything is because they have non-disclosure agreements and all sorts of other fun, happy things that legally prevent them from saying anything. I mean, on top of that, it would be really, really unprofessional for them to start blabbing about clients that they work for and whatnot in such ways. Um, this is pretty standard practice in security. With security companies, you don't generally, talk crap about your clients. You don't talk about the services. You don't talk significantly in depth about services you provide for clients. Now, the fact that these agents were under things like non-disclosure agreements and whatnot is really important, because basically they're not allowed to talk about anything that they any confidential information that they might see or hear in the course of their job duties. I interviewed once for a security job at a convention center, and one of the things that they said is you'd have to sign an NDA. And I've been under an NDA before, back when I was in the military, and it's still binding in a lot of things. I'm not going to get into that right now, blah, blah, blah. But, so basically the idea is you might get exposed to things like, trade secrets or stuff that's not supposed to be, known by the general public yet. Like, if you're working a trade convention and there's a company displaying like a new model of, say, I don't know, jet ski or something they're going to be that they're working on, and they haven't publicly announced it yet, you're not supposed to talk about it because it's not publicly available. It's really simple. But so yeah, there's that. So this guy, now as far as we know, now I don't particularly trust this guy's side of the story, but what seems to me happened is this guy got this stuff, he opened it up, made videos of it, put them online. The videos were taken down probably because Hasbro, the company that owns Wizard of the Coast, turned to YouTube and basically said, you're taking this down now. This has confidential information in it from our company. And Hasbro's a really big company. Really big. I mean, no, they're not like top 10 in the world or anything like that, but do you think Google's, who owns YouTube, is gonna like sit there and be like, oh yeah, we're totally gonna screw with a game with like a multi-million-dollar game company, or I think multi-billion-dollar game company? No, they're not gonna do that. That'd be stupid of them. And so Wizards then, Hasbro and Wizards, they send out these bonded agents. Now I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that the head of corporate security for Hasbro is himself a former Pinkerton. So so apparently that to a certain degree makes sense, because if you say to him, hey, who should we send, who do you know of that we could get, non-disclosure agreement, bonded folks to go out and pick this stuff up from this guy? And being a former Pinkerton himself, he says, the Pinkertons, gee, what a surprise. I mean, that would be like if you used to say, worked at a gas station, and I said, hey, name a gas station. A chain of gas stations, whatever. And if you used to work for a BP station, you're probably going to say BP. If you used to work at a Sunoco, you're going to say Sunoco, because it's going to be the first one that comes to mind. Unless, of course, there's a different one that you frequent all the time. I mean, I'm just saying that it's a natural association. You deal with something long enough, and it becomes the one you are going to think of the first time it gets mentioned. Like, if you ask me, role-playing game company, first thing I'm going to say is Wizards of the Coast. Oh yeah, there's others. There's Guardians of Order, there's White Wolf Game Studio, etc., etc. And Green Ronin, I think, is another one. Yeah, I'm not going to bother going over my bookshelves right now. But the point being, so they get the Pinkertons. They go. Now, initial reports was that there was no intimidation used to gain entry. They knocked at the door, explained what they were there for, they were let in, they got what they came for, and they left. No problems. Now, I will grant you, of course, that the Pinkerton name by itself carries a lot of intimidation value. If I knock on your door and I say, hi, I'm a contracted security investigator with XYZ company, I was told you'd be expecting me, I'm here to retrieve some stuff. If you want to balk at it, you're like, you know what, no, come back with the cops and a warrant. Bam, close the door. But if I say, hi, I'm with the Pinkerton Detective Agency, it's like, if you have any familiarity with the reputation of the Pinkertons, you're just like, wait, the who? All right, what do you want? You know, and I get it. You know, the brand recognition is there. But looking at this real now, some people are like, oh my god, it's just cardboard. Thank you for telling me what you think about intellectual property rights. Now, I have looked into going into intellectual property dependent fields before. You know, creative writing, game design, stuff like that. I mean, you pick up a book and it's just paper. It's just paper. And ink. And hundreds of hours of labor. And if you just give that away, then all of that work was for nothing. Because congratulations, you know, it's all free now. It's all free. And I can understand why people would be upset by, you know, unauthorized disclosure of material like that. It's like, yeah, no. No. Yeah, no. Now, let's put, say, you in a comparable situation. You sold something to somebody and you have to ship it to them. Okay, fine. You take stuff, you put it in a box, you seal it up, you send it out. A while later, something wasn't properly checked, the wrong stuff got sent out. What got sent out was private, confidential information, and this guy is now posting it all over the internet. Now, this private, confidential information that he's posting could be, I don't know, naughty pictures, maybe a video you and the missus or the mister or the whatever took together. Doesn't matter. Or maybe it's like a manuscript for a book you're working on, and now there's no reason for anyone to buy that book because it's all out there. It's all out there. Congratulations, all your work was for nothing. All that work was now just done for tips because you're not making anything in sales. Now, and depending upon what the contents of, in this case, it's Magic the Gathering cards. Now, if people see what these cards are, it might influence how much they buy of this early. It might influence how much they buy of the next set. It might affect how much they buy of the current sets. Like, if they look at what's coming up and say, yeah, this is going to blow what we got right now out of the water, or it's not going to synergize with it, or blah, this, that, the other, it's going to affect sales. There's money at stake here. Now, nobody was hurt. There were no legal repercussions out of this. I mean, theoretically, they could have sued this guy. Or they could have sent the cops after him and, hey, look at that, receiving stolen property. Because obviously, this stuff wasn't his. And there's the possibility that he balked at returning it to Wizards. And I'm not certain if he balked at that idea or not. I don't know. Either way, he was disclosing this information, and this was a big no-no. He was disclosing someone else's private information, confidential information, and that's a big no-no. Like, there's a reason why, companies like Coke and Pepsi spend a crap ton of money to keep their formulas secret. And why they will even go so far as, if you used to work for Coke and you get a hold of the recipe for Coke and you go to Pepsi and try and sell it to them, Pepsi will turn you into the cops and to Coke. Okay? That's how seriously they take these information breaches, because they know if they deal with it, because these corporate rivals know if they steal each other's formulas like this and engage in industrial espionage to that degree, that it opens up a lot of legal liabilities. They're not dumb. This guy was. Now, here's the great thing. Was Wizard of the Coast wrong to send people to retrieve their property? Well, I mean, it was their property. It wasn't his stuff. It was sent to him in error. If you send something to somebody when you in error, and when you meant to send something else, wouldn't you ask for the thing back, the thing that was sent out in error back? I mean, sure, you'll be like, yeah, I'll pay for the postage or the shipping or whatever, or I'll send someone down in person to pick it up. Makes sense, right? Just makes sense. So, yeah, but all these people flipping out over it is just crazy talk. And it's just like people flipping out because, oh my god, he sent the Pinkertons, oh my god! Who the fuck cares? Would it make you feel better if they had sent some other detective agency? One that you hadn't heard of? Oh, no, because it's one that has name recognition. That you associate with stuff that was done over 100 years ago. That's somehow relevant. Look. No. And then you got Will Wheaton saying, oh my god, people are kissing. I never thought I'd see people try to kiss the Pinkertons' boots. And I'm like, shut up, Wesley. And it's just like, look, I acknowledge that Will Wheaton is probably a pretty cool guy. From what I've heard, he is. And I don't have a problem with him personally. And I know that the phrase, shut up, Wesley, drives him straight up the fucking wall. Which is part of why I use it. But because he's talking out his ass right here. And he needs people who are not gonna frickin' sit here and kiss his butt to tell him the truth. He's not gonna like it. He may not listen at all. But, that's on him. That's on him. So, I'm looking at this whole situation realistically. Confidential information, Wizard of the Coast and Hasbro are just trying to limit the amount of confidential information that gets released to the public. And they sent people that were contracted and had non-disclosure agreements that they knew would not reveal this information to the public on, and if they did, there'd be massive lawsuits involved for breach of non-disclosure, right? So, yeah, there was no violence involved in any of this. Nobody took anything, no one broke anything. No one hurt anybody. Where's the problem? Like, if you wrote a book and, you accidentally shipped a copy of it to someone before it was ready for release and they started posting it online, wouldn't you want that taken down? I mean, they're just taking your work, your hard work, and they're just giving it away to people, or they're doing stuff that's going to affect your bottom line, your sales numbers, your income. This is how you make a living. Now, obviously, it's like it's a little bit harder to draw a direct analogy there when it comes to like tradable playing cards, like Magic the Gathering cards. It's a harder analogy. I'll admit that, because you've got physical play pieces involved here, so it's just like. But as I said earlier, I mean, it's more than conceivable that this stuff being information being leaked early will affect current and or future sales, possibly negatively, possibly positively, for all we know. I mean, heavens forbid, maybe this whole thing was just a big PR stunt, and it was a purposeful leak, and it just all backfired because they name dropped the Pinkertons. It's a genuine possibility. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. I don't believe that's the case. And if you want to know what I believe this guy was sent this stuff and in error. And he was stoked about the idea of being able to, like, just spoil this stuff months in advance. And Wizard of the Coast said, hey, you need to give this stuff back. Hey, just give this stuff back and take down the videos. And we'll send someone to pick the stuff up. And either the guys told Wizard of the Coast to pound sand, as the expression goes, or he said, or maybe he said he'd give it back but won't take the videos down. I don't know. And because we really, really can't take this guy's word for it, because he name-dropped the Pinkertons for a reason, and we all know what that reason was. It's because of the way that so many people are reacting to it. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, okay, you can tell me I'm wrong, but it's just like, there's no evidence either way. This is what I suspect. I admit, this is all conjecture. This is all suspicion. I do not have all the information, and I probably never will. And to be perfectly honest, it doesn't particularly matter to me all that much. It's not going to affect anything I do in the future. It doesn't, put food on my plate or keep a roof over my head. It doesn't take anything away from me. And as far as, like, what the gentleman who had these private investigators come to his home looking for this misplaced property is concerned, well, is he out anything? Is he out anything? Now, maybe because of this entire fiasco, he may lose some of his buying connections because they're just like, yeah, in the end of the mistake, we can't trust this guy. That's a genuine possibility, but that's on him. That's his mistake. That's his fault. That is 100% on him. 100%. Because anyone seriously involved in any kind of intellectual property business knows and understands that you just don't do that. You don't open this crap up and post it online. And like, no. He should have contacted Wizards of the Coast immediately upon getting this stuff. But he didn't. Or if he did, he certainly didn't return it immediately. He could have boxed this stuff back up, taped it up, sent it out. Said, hey, pay me for the pay me back to ship it, pay me for a fee to ship this back, and replace the stuff I ordered that I didn't get, and we'll call this done. Didn't do that. And there's the whole thing. We got a whole bunch of people sitting there, all up in arms about, oh my God, Pinkerton this, Pinkerton that, and totally ignoring that this guy did a lot of shit that he shouldn't have done. just completely ignoring it. And in the end, the whole Pinkerton business, it's like, okay, so name brand, that's it. Because of the brand name on the private investigators, you flip your shit. You flip your shit. Now look, I know that Wizards of the Coast has had more than its share of stupid snafus the last couple years. There was that business with the new version of the open game license that they were considering, and which was kind of funny because that thing was unworkable. There was no way in hell that revised version they wanted to put, that they were considering, was something that would have worked. It couldn't have worked. And to be perfectly honest, the only thing I saw wrong with that was the fact that how much bookkeeping it would require out of basically small-time publishers. Because it's like, people are like, oh my god, Wizards is trying to take your intellectual property with this. And it's like, have you read the original open gaming license? Because you've already, if you're operating under the original OGL, you already did that. You have literally already given them some of your intellectual property. Any information that you've made under OGL that isn't setting specific, like anything game mechanical, yeah, you've given them a free license for it already by putting it under OGL. Good job. Good job. Or there's the issue, for example, with in the recent Spelljammer materials, there was a race that was meant to be a reference to the flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz, and that came out really bad. So bad. And it's like, now as you can tell, I'm pretty white. I'm pretty white. And I looked at that and I was like, what were you thinking? I mean, the idea that the people that wrote this didn't see anything wrong with it. The project manager and the editors saw nothing wrong with it. Like, no one at any point in time stood up and said, hey, this is screwed up. You might not want to put this out on paper or digitally or any other way. Just no, full stop. This needs to be revised. This is going to cause a crap storm. Someone should have been there to say that, and no one. And I don't know if anyone did, but if they did, they weren't listened to. And yeah, there's that speaks badly about, what folks are trying to do in there, And it's funny too, because at the same time you have that like ridiculous bit of insensitivity, we have people being angry that Wizards of the Coast is eliminating the idea of sentient creatures having an innate alignment when it comes to player character, playable races and stuff like that, because it's just like, orcs are just no longer innately chaotic evil. Which, okay, fine, don't have a problem with that. I mean, it's about a society and not a race. For that matter, they're also eliminating the word race and replacing it with species. I don't have a problem with that either. Like, why is that a problem? I mean, the word race, let's be perfectly honest, carries a lot of baggage. A lot of real-world baggage with it. And it'd be nice to just get that out of there. Call me crazy on that. And which is funny because, Wizards bought themselves a crap ton of goodwill with, was it Tales from the Radiant Citadel, I believe it was? The book where basically all of the adventure material in it was from like uh, people of color and LGBT people and whatnot, and that's great. That's cool. That's awesome. And some people might say, "Oh, well, why are they showing so much favoritism towards them?" And it's just like, maybe because we live in a society where these people are literally under attack. Where, I mean, if you look at it, there are places that are passing laws making these people just existing illegal. That's crazy. So yeah, it might be a good idea to sit there and say, hey, we are not as a society condoning stuff like that, and this is the company number putting not only putting its money where its mouth is, but it's also chasing those dollars involved with that, because as much as people on the hard right and whatnot want to say go woke go broke, it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. Like, all of these companies that are like woke this, woke that, yada 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 yada, that they complain about, it's like these companies are by and large doing just fine. And the companies that are and the companies and people that are embracing this crazy anti woke foolishness, let's take a look at that. I mean, well, let's take a look at it. I mean, like, people get fired for this crap because no one wants to be associated with it, because, newsflash, it is not popular in modern American culture. For that matter, European culture either. But that's not our primary concern right now, right? Right. So this video is going on now, and I've rambled a lot, I know, and I apologize. But yeah, if you want more information on this stuff, it is out there. So if you want more information on who and what the Pinkertons are, you can just go to Google, read the Wikipedia entries, look at their corporate webpage. There's information about the Pinkertons and Mr. Pinkerton himself in the places you generally wouldn't necessarily expect, like the Smithsonian's website, I want to say, had stuff with him. A couple other places, news organizations, or organizations that tend to cover things like history. You can look up organized labor. The Pinkertons have a huge intersection with organized labor, which is one of the reasons why they have the reputation they do. There's a lot of stuff there you can read about and learn about this stuff. And the people who are originally heard about the Pinkertons from listening to like stories that were handed down by their parents and their grandparents and their great grandparents, you know something about this already, but once again, what you know are stories that have been handed down, which may have been embellished or had details made fuzzy over time, because memories are weird things. And, it wouldn't hurt to do some actual, research and find out what the facts of the matter are. And understand, of course, that even the facts aren't completely clear. It's been a long time, and not necessarily everything was properly documented. So there's a lot of room there for interpretation and suspicion. And, when it comes to stuff like that, all I ask is that you sit there and keep fact separate from your own conjecture and your own analysis. I mean, you could sit there and say XYZ happened, and I believe the causes were like ABC, and this is why I believe these things. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. But if you sit there and try and pass off your analysis and your conjecture as facts, that's when you start entering bad territory, man. That's when and all I'm asking for is for people to engage with the facts. Now, if you want to sit there and say, I don't like the Pinkertons, I don't have a problem with liking or not liking the Pinkertons. That's no skin off my back, you know. At the same time, though, if you don't like the Pinkertons because they were the bad guys in a video game, like, are you fucking serious? Are you goddamn serious? And of course, the whole idea of that apparently the Pinkertons of today are the same people that did crazy crap 100 years ago. No, they're not. I mean, are they people of similar character? I don't know. Like I said, I don't personally know any Pinkertons or any former Pinkertons. But the people that you're concerned about, the people that you formed your impression, the people in the actions that you have formed your impressions from, are either like fictional people that never existed, or they're fictionalizations of real people, or it is because of the real people and the real actions, but all of the people involved in all of that are dead in dust and long gone. And it's just like, I was in the United States Army, and it's just like, when I was in Iraq, my job was primarily concerned with protecting civilians from terrorists, from the insurgents, because these people, these terrorist organizations, it's like, do you honestly think they were going to stop when we left? That they were going to stop at anything less than getting control of the country away from, like, the regular people? Because we all know how that worked out. We pulled out of Iraq, and then, Islamic State just tried to take over. And, thankfully, despite all the progress that those jackwagons made, they got stopped. They're still around to some extent. They're still around and operating to some extent and all, but they don't have this massive amount of territory like they used to. But the whole thing being, though, is that was what my job in the military was. I was protecting predominantly Iraqi civilians. Do you know what my job wasn't? Killing Native Americans. I wasn't killing Sioux or Shoshone or Choctaw or anything like that. But, 100 odd years ago, that's what the U.S. military was involved in. And, yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, I'm not proud of a lot of the things that my country has done in the past. But at the same time, this is where I am. This is where I live. This is the country I'm in. And you know what? I see it that, how about I try to make things better? I mean, because things have steadily improved since then. But at the same time, there's still a long way to go, too. Call me crazy on that if you like. But, yeah, once again, that's another tangent, right? So, yeah, all I want is for people to work with the facts and be able to differentiate between, what what you can say with certainty, and what your conjecture is, what your theories are, and, you may believe them wholeheartedly. I don't have a problem with you believing that, what your conjecture is. I don't have a problem with you believing in what your analysis is. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The problem I have is with you sitting there and just spouting, if you're going to sit there and spout these things as if they're undisputable fact, which they aren't. Or, heaven forbid, this whole idea that, like, yeah, organizations over the 100 plus years aren't going to change. Like, really? Really? Because that's crazy. That's just really crazy. I mean, shit. Let's look at the German government in the 20th century. I mean, you went from, Germany having, like, and from, pre-World War I Germany, where you had, like, whatever they call kings and whatnot, and then the Kaiser. There we go. And then you went to post-World War One Germany, where everything was crap, and then Germany recovering from World War One, which was scary, very scary. And then you had World War Two Germany, which was that scary, turned up to 11. Oh God! Oh God! And then you had post-World War Two Germany. And then you had post-reunification Germany. I mean, so, and that's just in the 20th century. I'm just talking from, 1900 to 2000. And with the Pinkertons, you're talking from 1850 to the 2020s. So you're looking at an even bigger period of time than that. Organizations, societies, you can see some really radical change in shockingly short periods of time. So, now, once again, I'm not saying the Pinkertons are all, friendly, happy-go-lucky guys or anything like that, but at the same time, they're not the people you imagine them to be. Oh, hi. There's my pet rabbit coming out saying hi. Maybe I'll put some fresh video for her up sometime or another soon. In the meantime, I'm going to call this done. And upload this and say, hey, you know what, fellas? Have a great day, man. Be good. Stay safe. Kill nobody I wouldn't. Happy gaming. I'll catch you whenever the hell the next time I catch you is. Later, fellas.